Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio back in the mix. I am recording the show upside down. I'll do it for the benefit of YouTube because I'm recording with Rachel Guy. Again, we got really good feedback from Rachel's show, especially from the women. People had said, "Do you know what, Ben? You need more awesome women on your show." So, by default, we got back a very good guest, and Rachel is back on. Rachel Guy from Australia. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Let me turn that volume up. Let's get you loud and clear. I'm brilliant. I'm brilliant. Really good. I was really happy with the feedback from the last show. We don't. I know that it's a very male-dominated show. It's probably because I'm a man, and I'll be honest as well. There's not as many awesome female coaches in the fitness industry. I think it's very male-dominated. Do you agree?
I would actually 100% agree. I would love it if more women would come out, especially in the strength conditioning world, and just show what they have. It's you add a different dimension. Like women add a different dimension to the industry, and unfortunately, I want to say there are too many sort of Tracy Anderson type trainers in the world. So come on, girls, get with it. Start lifting some heavier weights and show the world what you've got.
I agree. Do you think maybe women emerging to sort of, we'll call it the top, and being like comfortable producing seminars and talking on stage, do you think that's partly because women tend to, and this is a brutal generalization, have more kind of issues surrounding self-confidence, like self-belief, which actually stops them from taking that extra step to saying, actually, no, I am really good at what I do and I'm going to share that message?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I started out in this industry, my background's in physiotherapy, and when I finished as a physio, my passion was rugby, and I thought, how the hell am I going to be a strength coach? I'm 55 kilos, I'm blonde, and I want to be a rugby strength coach. Everyone's going to laugh at me, and they did. But the truth is, I just started shadowing some strength coaches in the rugby field, and the more I just became almost obsessed with learning about strength, and I practiced what I preached. So I was lifting heavy every day. I was training hard, and I was basically learning by mistakes. And the one thing that I've noticed is that I rarely see female trainers who really love training. And when I talk about loving training, I'm not just talking about, loving doing lateral raises and, you know, hamstring curls and quad extensions. Like I'm talking like really loving training, like having almost like a kind of like a sick passion for training.
Yeah.
Something that's like completely infectious. And I see that a lot more in guys. Like, like with training, you gotta love like the pain that you go through. You gotta love like how sore you get. You gotta love the hard fucking work. Like that's what the stuff that you have to love. And unfortunately, it a lot of people are afraid of hard work, and that's what it comes down to. And there are some women out there who are very very good trainers, and they're very good at what they do. And yes, then I think it does come down to a confidence issue about getting on stage. And it's practice. I was terrified the first time I got on stage to speak publicly. I can't speak now publicly. And it's terrifying, but it does get easier with time. And the more confident you become with what you do, and the more that you love what you do, you'll realize that probably the biggest mistake that you can make when you're starting to learn how to speak and how to present is you have to realize that you can't please everybody. There is always going to be people who do not like what you have to say, or try and bring you down, or try and contradict what you have to say. So you can never please everybody. You just have to make sure that you do the best of your abilities. You make sure that you stay on top of the research. You keep educating yourself, and just keep loving what you're doing.
That's probably a very common female trait, right? Not that desire, that wanting to feel that you need to please everyone. If there's a room of 50 and 49 were happy and one weren't, I think a woman would very commonly feel that they had failed, full stop.
Yeah.
Because one person wasn't happy, where a guy would kind of be like, whatever, screw you, dude.
I'm very lucky. I've kind of got the alpha genes there. I couldn't give a shit.
See,
But
coming back to
you
you,
know,
like loving training.
yeah.
It was really interesting. I just downloaded the American weightlifting movie that Catalyst Athletics did in America, and me and my girlfriend watched it together while we were building our travel map at the weekend. Anyway, little personal anecdote for you there. And we were watching it, and they were filming all the people in the gym, and they were warming up, and they were doing their thing, and me and my girlfriend literally both at the same time were like, wow, she's hot. And there was all these kind of like just like fit, kind of normal looking girls, and then there was this really kind of like, I'll describe it a bit more kind of like Barbie, bimbo-esque kind of, blonde hair, 5'6". Guys would say, oh, she's got a nice rack. There was this really pretty girl, and she was lifting, and she was getting stuck into her clean and jerks.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did she have a nice snatch? Sorry, had to be said.
And we were like, that is so sexy. Like this girl that most people would go, oh, she just goes home and does her nails and does her hair and whatever. And actually, she's in the gym hustling with 75 kilo above her head, and she's got like a more powerful hip drive than any guy you'd ever see. And it was just really cool.
I think you have to maintain a bit of you do have to maintain a balance between the two, and there you can be very much the tomboy and the boy in the gym, but it's still nice to be a lady outside of the gym. And it's definitely something that I certainly kind of take on a persona when I get into the gym, and the switch gets flicked on, and I've just got these I stole off my brother at Christmas, these those like new headphones, the Beats by Dre.
Yeah.
Well, up until Christmas, I always looked at people in the gym and went, what a wanker. Why do you need to wear those in a gym? You should just wear your iPod ones. Anyway, I stole my brother's, and I'm now one of those wankers in the gym wearing these big headphones with, System of a Down and Disturbed and Rammstein and all that playing in my ears. And oh my God, let me tell you, these things take your training to a whole new level. Like, I must be the scariest looking woman in the gym when I've got these things on. It's, you've got to get nasty in the gym. It's not a place to look pretty. It's not a place to be particularly ladylike. It's you've got to get the job done.
I agree. And I always used to wear those big headphones when I trained in a commercial gym because I didn't want to talk to people. Like, I was in there to do a job. Like, I didn't want whoever coming over going, how was your weekend, and spend 6 minutes between sets. And I'm like, yeah, brilliant. Like, that really put a spanner in my flow, and that was another reason. But God, you've got to have your tunes when you train. Like, I am, I just stick it on the stereo now because we can, and you've got to let it pump. And some of the other people that do happen to walk in the gym when I'm training in the rugby club are kind of like, oh God, yeah, this old toot again. But yeah, it's about getting in there and hustling. And some people talk to me about, they say, oh, how long do you train? Like, I'm only in the gym twice a week, and I'm in there an hour. And it's not that I need longer or could do more longer. It's like, I'm done after an hour. Like, I've gone in, I've warmed up, I'm in it, I'm moving quickly, I'm not taking any more rest than I need to. And at an hour, a lot of the time I think, do you know what, I'll do a bit extra. I'll just, as a guy, I say, I'll do a bit extra on the guns, And I just,
guns for show, yes.
Exactly. I don't want to. Like, I'm done. I've really hustled, and I'm in and I'm out. So yeah, you're right. Get nasty, and that's men and women.
That's right. And the thing is, I think a lot of women don't push to that intensity in a gym because they haven't been taught to, and it does take time. And when you're starting out lifting weights, you do have to be a little bit more controlled, and you have to learn the very basics. I was in a gym today, and I was training at a commercial facility, and I just saw a guy. He was obviously a new trainer. He lifted himself. He was quite big. He was in good shape. And I just saw him. He put 60 kilos. He had a 60-kilo barbell on the floor, and he expected this lady who was pretty deconditioned to lift it. And he was teaching her how to deadlift. Now, I'm sorry, but that's really embarrassing to a lady to put 60 kilos on a bar who's probably never lifted before. Like, there's no form of progression here. You know, you've got to start at the very, very basics. Like, my guess is she probably couldn't even do a bodyweight squat, full range of movement. And you're asking this poor chick to lift 60 kilos off the floor. Are you kidding me? Like, this is what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, you know? So in terms of, we're talking about how people should train harder, I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, there has to be a step back as well. And you've got to cover the foundations and the basics before you move on.
Yeah, it pays dividends. It's like guys will ask you, "Oh, what's the best training split to follow? What's the best way to go about things?" And I'm like, right, let's forget about muscles and what you're trying to achieve. Let's just think about like movements and teaching the body how to move. Like, have you ever done a program where you just squat, deadlift, chin up, and do push-ups and nail your technique and progress your strength and be able to control and stabilize your joints and stabilize the core and all these things that lead to proper movement and progression? But I suppose that's the thing, the battle that we have as fitness professionals is that most of the people are reading fitness information, majority mainstream, through like magazines, a little bit on website articles, things like that. And what's in a magazine? Like, some fitness models new split. So when they get inspired to go, right, I need to get in the gym, their inspiration is the chest and back, the leg and torso, whatever. Rather than actually going, this is what an individual is, this is what you need to do. And a lot of the time, actually, people ask me, Ben, what's the best resource to say, where should I start out? And I don't often know where to send people, to be honest.
I'm the same. I don't. Perhaps we should create one.
Yeah. If you are new to training, go here.
We should create a resource for complete beginners on how you can start weight training and how you can start on a healthy lifestyle and weight training if you've never done it before. I think that's a really good idea. But just what was I about to say then? I had something really good to say then, and I can't remember what it was.
That's a lie.
It was something to do with, I don't know. It'll come back to me.
Anyway, I've got loads of questions that we got from Facebook. Let's rattle through them, and we'll see where conversation goes. Some of these were left over from
I've remembered what the question was, but I think it's actually going to come up in these questions, so I'll just, we'll just go with the flow.
Are you sure? I don't want you to forget again.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
All right. So some new questions and some left over from the old podcast. Julie Ann Taylor asks, what are your thoughts regarding women and creatine use?
Okay, I have several thoughts on this. First of all, it totally depends on the individual and the sport, and let's break it down here. If we're talking about the general population lady, say your corporate girl who wants to look good in a bikini, she wants to grow a little bit of muscle, stay small, get leaner, basically grow some killer curves, creatine is completely unnecessary. There are mixed opinions on it, I will say that, but none of my girls take creatine. I think that if you want to grow as a female, if you want to grow muscle, you've got to eat more and you've got to train hard. And it's that simple. You need high volume training or heavy training and a lot of it. And you need a lot of food to maintain or sustain that, and also to grow. A lot of women can't put on muscle because they eat like sparrows. They certainly don't eat enough protein. A lot of people are just completely terrified of carbohydrates, which is very damaging to metabolism. So in terms of when we're looking at that sort of clientele, no, I don't use creatine with them. I just don't think it's necessary. If we're looking at strength and power athletes, you know what, it can be down to the individual. Personally, I don't train strength and power athletes anymore, especially females. And so it would be down to a personal level, and it would be down to an individual basis on whether I would recommend creatine consumption.
Okay, that's interesting, because I would agree to a degree, but I would disagree to a degree, purely because I suppose creatine's main benefit is in exercise that is working into the lactate system. We're looking
Yeah,
at 6, 8, at the very lower end reps plus. So if you have a woman in the gym that's really trying to bust some squats and she's hitting 14, 15, 16 reps, then it could be beneficial. But to say, is it necessary or whatever, I think the argument could swing both ways whether it would be
for sure,
beneficial or not. Um,
for sure.
but I think
I love
habitually,
people. I love people disagreeing with me. By the way,
rawr.
I know it gives you. Hey, it gives you a chance to learn something, right?
Yeah,
I don't deal with girl. I don't deal. I build like athletic, bikini bodies and like curvy female bodies. I don't prep girls for shows anymore. I don't. Yes, I train bikini girls. And I don't really deal with high end athletes either. So really in terms of what I deal with personally, and what the general public sort of are after, no, I wouldn't particularly use it. I think there are other things that can be used as a preference instead. But no, I 100% agree with you. It's down to the individual, really.
mm. I think as well with any supplementation, I think women and men are both susceptible to this in a high regard. Is that when you go through a process and we attach a supplementation to it, it's like this process needs this supplementation for this process to happen. So it's like, guys will go, right, I'm going back to the gym. That means I need whey protein, I need creatine, I need a pre-workout, I need all this stuff. And then all of a sudden they've ordered £130 worth of supplements just because they're going back to the gym. And I'm like, no, 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 no. The
Yeah.
gym is just you keeping fit. We're looking at the body, the way it works. We're looking at health. We're looking at longevity. If you want to then get in the gym and hustle to a greater degree and you want to drive yourself harder, then by all means, buy a few funky supplements, look at your performance. But don't think that a certain process in life has to associate itself with a certain set of supplements or a regime. Because for
Yeah.
me, that would be a faulty thought process.
I agree. I've known guys who will get to the gym, realize that they haven't got their protein powder or their pre-workout, and they won't train.
They'll go home.
They think they'll go home because they think they'll be catabolic if they don't consume their BCAAs and 30 grams of whey protein with Vitago post training. They'll go catabolic. I'm not kidding. Like, I hear these things all the time. It's pretty funny.
Okay,
And then I hear girls who say, oh, I'll go out and I have to go and do my fasted cardio in the morning because otherwise I'll get fat, and then I can't eat for 2 hours afterwards because that's the fat burning window, and they get nowhere with that. And no wonder their bodies are very stressed, and no wonder their thyroid levels are their hormone levels are all over the place. It's very stressful for the body.
Do you know what? Hormones are fascinating because it's a part of my learning that I'm delving more and more into, especially via testing. I've been on a couple of courses looking at hormone profiling and the testing, and it's so incredibly in depth, and it
Yeah.
just amazes me how there's so many people out there that are going, "Oh, hormones don't matter. Hormones don't control body composition." Like, I get either side of the argument, but until people actually touch the surface, which is a very deep and windy rabbit hole, you just have no idea of the body's potential. So I'm having blood chemistry work done regularly at the moment, working with someone, and we're looking at how my body works and the effects of what I do, and some of the results have been really surprising. Seeing how kind of like healthy an individual I am on a daily basis and how I monitor like stress and all the rest of it. And there's just a few small things that they picked up on, like I'm not methylating some of my hormones as they come out the other end, and the enzymes aren't working on my testosterone and DHEA pathway as they come out. So although I have very high testosterone, it's not actually being cleared properly out of my body. So, I might go to the doctor and say I've got a certain amount of symptoms, and he'll go, right, we'll do a testosterone. Nah, your testosterone's high. It's brilliant. Don't worry about it. but we're not actually looking at the full picture. There is something wrong, but it's somewhere else in the chain. And I remember when I went on my first hormone course, and we started talking, about the cascade of hormonal influence, like hypothalamus, pituitary, where it's signaling off that, the stimulating hormones, and you think there is just so much to learn. The human body is so complex.
It
And I
is.
can't remember the original statement that made me go off on a tangent, but it just makes you realise when people aren't or can't find answers, there is a huge rabbit hole that you can go down for answers. It's not just a case of, because you'll get it all the time, I get it all the time. Oh, Ben, I've tried everything. I'm like, no, you haven't.
There you have it.
There is a whole world
And
you haven't tried.
there's two sides to that story. I'll just continue on a hormone thing. I've got a practitioner. I think we're talking about the same person here. If anybody hasn't already heard of him, Callum Gore. I think, are you working with Callum? I'm not sure.
I am, yes.
Okay, so Callum is also a friend of mine, and he's probably my most trusted guy in terms of hormones and what's exactly going on in the body. And from what I gather, Callum's bringing out an education program which will be really exciting, because there are a lot of practitioners, or especially personal trainers now, who are getting into functional medicine, and they're literally only scratching the surface. And it's a dangerous thing when you have somebody who's very good at training, and that's great, that's almost what they should stick to, but they're now venturing down the roads of functional medicine, and it is dangerous, because it is such a massive, complex subject. So, I think if you're a trainer, like, stick to training. If you want to branch out into nutrition, that's great. Branch out into nutrition. You know what? If you want to do functional medicine, then that's fantastic. But you have to devote a long, it's not just a course. You can't call yourself a functional medicine practitioner after one course. It has to be, a long commitment, and
I would say it's, looking at what there is to learn, I would say it's a 4 to 5 year journey.
100%, yeah, and the rest. I mean, look at even training. I mean, God, I met you 10 years ago when we were doing our first check course, and we were pretty fit young things back in the day. But every day, do you not learn something new about training? I do.
No, 100%. And you learn it these days off the strangest of people.
The strangest of people, I know. Absolutely. I mean, the other side of it is, when people come to you and say, oh, but I've tried everything. My first thought is that's bullshit. Most people are not consistent enough. They do not try hard enough, and they do not stick to something for long enough to see the effects and see basically, and to reap the rewards. Disease, entitlement is the disease of the 21st century. Everyone is entitled to something. We were talking about this earlier. Everyone's entitled to, cheap personal training, and, everyone's entitled to have a fit and healthy body. Everyone's entitled to, X, Y, and Z. No, you've got to work for it. And you've got to work damn hard for it every single day. It's not easy to have a fit and healthy body. You have to look after it. You give them one body, and you have to look after it every day.
100%. Right. Well, before we talk all day and have a rant.
Okay, that's my words of wisdom for today. Okay, now let's talk about something positive.
Let's move on with the questions.
Okay.
Brendan Blood says, are cravings, which are awfully common in women, psychological, physiological, or both?
Oh, wow, you've really opened up a can of worms, haven't you? Okay, let me keep this simple. We'll start with the psychological side of things. Yes, I would say that a lot of cravings, let's talk about in somebody who's got a healthy diet and who has cravings. So somebody who generally eats a non-processed food diet, meats, vegetables, fruits, your starchy carbohydrates, generally a balanced diet, and they still have cravings. Yes, I would say that is probably most likely psychological. A lot of women tend to find that when they have cravings, they will also feel like there is something in their life that is missing, and they eat to try and fill the void. The same goes for women who over-exercise. They exercise to fill the void, and whether they be sitting their computer and they're just munching on something mindlessly. Mindless eating is basically an activity to fill the void. So you have these little voices in your head all the time, and there are times where when you eat food, it kind of numbs that voice for a while or a short period of time. So that's one reason why a lot of women do overeat. It is always something underlying. What I say to my girls is, when you feel like you need something to eat, really ask yourself, are you really hungry? Are you thirsty? Or what is it that you really feel like you're missing? And sometimes it can be an underlying stress thing. For example, oh, I've got so much to do and I don't know where to start. Well, start by writing a list of the things that you need to do. Identify what it is at a core level that you're craving, because I can tell you now it's not going to be food. So just on that note as well, another reason you know when you're eating for psychological reasons is that you'll always want to go and tell somebody about it. I brought this up in a seminar when I was back in Wales last month. When you have, for example, you go on a bit of a binge and you eat a whole tub of ice cream, the first thing that you will want to do is go and tell somebody about it. And it's usually your best friend. You get on the phone and be like, oh, guess what I did last night? I had a pizza and then I had ice cream and it was the whole tub. And all you want your friend to turn around and say is, oh, it's okay. Because by your friend saying that it's okay, it totally justifies your behavior. I can tell you now that if you're on a nutrition plan and your goal is fat loss, it is not fucking okay to have a pizza and a tub of ice cream. It is not okay. So despite what your friend says, by saying, oh, it's okay, it's not okay. It's detrimental to your goals and is detrimental to your health. And it's basically putting you backwards several days. So just friends, be aware of this. Next time you get a call where someone wants to tell you how much they've eaten, don't justify their behavior. You know, if you want to be a good friend to them, you want to say, well, actually, that's not in line with your goals. Why did you do that? What's missing? Talk to them. Find out why they did it. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not because they were hungry. It's because of a psychological reason for something that is missing in their life currently.
That's awesome, because that's just triggered something in my head with a particular someone, and it takes an awful amount of self-reflection and self-honesty to come to that underlying conclusion. And I would agree 100%. And people sort of, especially around me, sort of family and friends wise, know that I'm a very controlled individual with my food. And it's because I take zero comfort in, like, oh yeah, I love some cheesecake. And I'm like, so what? I don't care. Like, I have so much comfort in what I do and why I eat food and what it provides my body, that there's just absolutely no association with actually a deep underlying satisfaction. You know, it doesn't really satisfy me. It's nice to eat for 3 minutes.
It's nice.
And that's it. Like, gone. That's a fascinating point. And whether people that are listening to this right now will go away and actually say, and be honest and resolve the situation and work on it, that's another thing entirely. Because all you've really done is opened up a can of worms for them, but they need to close that can of worms, because that's going to equal progress.
I think you need to be honest, honest and truthful with yourself. I'm a big foodie. I love food, but it's a choice. You choose. Whatever you put in your mouth is a choice, and you need to be very aware, especially when you're on a fat loss plan, and you have goals to get to a certain look. You need to be very careful about what you put in your mouth, and that it is a choice. Look, I'm a big lover of food. I love red wine. I've said that on several podcasts before. I'm a big foodie. I love cake. I love ice cream. I love all of that stuff. But every time I eat it, it's a choice. If we look at the other side of things, where we have physical cravings often derive from eating nutrient devoid foods. So things that are processed. I know if it fits your macros is a very big thing in the industry right now. I love Lane Norton. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I would consider him a very good friend of mine. But I choose not to eat things like Pop-Tarts. I don't like them very much. I don't think they don't make me feel good. So I choose to eat A lot of my food is macro based, but I choose to eat very sort of filling foods, which are nutrient dense and very nutritious. So if somebody is having physical cravings, I would definitely say, start to look at the quality of your foods. Make sure that you're getting enough water in. And really sort of look at it from that point of view. And then again, this is where sort of hormones come in as well, because people do have sometimes very clean diets, or a very balanced diet, shall we say, and they still have cravings. And obviously, let's be honest here, we're women. Sometimes women do have cravings, and you know what? Get over it. If you want a bit of dark chocolate, get over it. You can have some dark chocolate. It's not going to be detrimental to your figure.
Sweet.
Literally. And I have to apologise for swearing so much. I know, I should stop.
No. I saw a wicked quote on Facebook the other day where I don't know. But he said people that don't swear are usually less honest.
Okay, well then I'm very fucking honest. Sorry.
Because I think I'm very honest and I swear quite a bit. So that's obviously scientific fact, because we've just proved it with correlation. So lovely. So another question, Alice Francis says, what do you recommend for women with their food and training when coming into pregnancy? How long can you train for when building up to the big day?
Ooh, I love this topic. I'm just about to...
I'm glad you love it.
I know. I have to say I'm not ready for babies just yet, but I do love kids, and I've had a lot of my friends recently who have had babies and are pregnant, so I think it must be that age that I'm getting to. Anyways, I'm deliberating on what to do on this topic, because I'm not sure whether to create an ebook or a course or even a membership site for mums to be, and ladies who've just had babies, and sort of basically a mummy website, because all of my friends tell me there aren't sort of very good reliable sources on training and nutrition, and especially nutrition for your newborn. What should you be eating whilst you're breastfeeding? There aren't very good sites. There's a couple out there, but there aren't many reliable sites out there. So I thought maybe that could be my new project sort of for later on in the year. So I'm very passionate about this topic. How often should you train, and how hard should you train before the big day? It totally depends on what your base levels of training and conditioning are. So what I would not recommend is, if you're a general gym goer, let's say that you're going to the gym 3 times a week and you're doing a bit of cardio and you're sort of dabbling with weights, you do not, under any circumstances, then decide that you want to get fit and start going and lifting heavy weights 5 days a week. That's very, very silly. However, there are, I've got some, for example, friends who are CrossFitters, who've fallen pregnant, and they've maintained a fairly high intensity level almost right until the end. I just recall a video that I watched on YouTube of a CrossFitter, and she was doing rope climbing, and she was almost full term. So, people can do it. Would I recommend it? Probably not. I think you have to err on the side of caution, especially...
So let's quantify. You say you wouldn't recommend it. Are you thinking that there's a certain time scale where you should say, do you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe you should just back off a little bit. What are we saying? 4 months in? 6? I don't know. Sorry, that's long. What's a pregnancy term again?
Let's look at it from a physiological level. Whenever you squat, deadlift, press anything above your head, you have a bilateral oblique brace, right? So your stomach, your muscles crunch in like this. So whether you're pressing something above your head, squatting, deadlifting, whatever, bilateral oblique brace. That means that essentially you could, I'm not saying that you do, but there are, if you were looking from a physical level, we make sure that we do a lot of single arm work, and we also do a lot of isolation type exercises. So an example would be before my goddaughter was born, when I was training her mum, an example would be when she was almost full.
Rachel,
Are you still there?
yeah, can you rewind about 20 seconds? The signal broke out.
Yeah, okay, cool. Where was 20 seconds? So basically, an example would be, did you catch the bilateral oblique brace?
We did, yeah.
Okay, cool. So what I would recommend is you just always err on the side of caution. You do have to listen to your body. I would stick to the general recommendation that you do not let your heart rate go above 160 beats per minute. If you're very fit, yes, it probably can go a little bit higher, but I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't like you to take my recommendation to go above that. So I would stay 160 beats per minute for your workouts. And I would tend to stick to less heavy lifting and making sure that you can still do a range of exercises, but I would choose an exercise, for example, such as a goblet squat over a heavy barbell back squat. I would do a lot more sort of single arm work. Single arm rowing, cables are great. You can still do incline dumbbell pressing, relatively heavy. Anything that's not going to cause a lot of pressure around your abdomen. Because you got to remember, you got a little baby in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, to me, based off your recommendations, let's take an example. Let's take a woman. Let's say, hypothetically, she lifts 100 kilos in the deadlift for 5 reps. Now, at that point, she might be quite close to a maximal core brace. So, it's putting a lot of muscular pressure around the abdomen area. So, really, we should look at a training intensity that is kind of, we'll call it maintenance. So we would lift at maybe like 80, 85 kilos, maybe increase the rep range so that the training stress is just slightly lower, and maybe look to maintain in the big lifts so that you maintain your strength and your core strength, and the way you contract your pelvic floor and your transverse abdominis and stuff, and then to keep like a training stimulus so you can maintain some good body composition. You might jump on some machines and just do a bit of machine work, so it actually takes that core loading off for a period of time and just allows the external muscles to maintain the stimulus.
Yeah, I mean it's a general recommendation, and I would say it goes again. It's completely individual because there are some ladies who have very easy pregnancies who can train almost to the point where they're almost full term at their usual training intensity, perhaps at 80% of it. And then there are other women who really have tough pregnancies and they really struggle to train at all, despite the fact they were very, very fit before. They might just walk during their pregnancy. So again, I think your recommendation is pretty much spot on. I think you got to go pretty much at 80% or less, and don't give yourself a hard time. It's important to maintain body composition, but the health of your child is more important.
Nice. I like that. That was some valuable content. Right, let's move on with these questions. One question that you wanted to discuss, which seemed to be a popular question from a lot of people, was how to train to stay small and slim but not look like a fitness model. So I think we're kind of looking at training in the gym to be strong but not get bulky, which is the female fear, really.
Yeah. Well, we've discussed this before in the previous podcast. For a female to put on size, it is very difficult for a start. You need to be training high volume and hitting muscle groups certainly more than once a week at a fairly high intensity and eating enough. So my general recommendations for women who want to maintain a small, strong and tight figure are that you should, it's important to still do your big lifts, but not overemphasize progression. By that, I mean, don't be obsessed with putting weight on the bar. So say, for example, you're a 60 kilo girl and you're squatting, your back squat is say 40 kilos for 10 reps, or 50 kilos for 10 reps. That's a pretty decent weight. Don't be obsessed with doing big lifts and continually pushing boundaries. Oh, I've got to lift heavier, got to lift heavier. What I would suggest is that you keep a decent weight, and then you do a lot of single leg work. So leg training is really important for females. If you don't want to grow, single leg works, a lot of single arm work is very important. and making sure that you do have cardio in your program. I am a fan of doing interval training. If you want to stay small, you should be looking to do at least 2 interval sessions a week, probably even 3. The types of training you should be doing, maybe circuit-based training. So instead of split body part, you look at doing total body training sessions. So you may look to do 3 total body training sessions a week. One may be a squat dominant day, one may be a deadlift dominant day, and one may be an upper body day dominant, but you still train all body parts. And also just making sure you're keeping an eye on your caloric intake in your nutrition plan. So that's generally my general recommendations. A lot of women, even though they need to stay small, I still emphasize a lot of glute work. Glute work, I mean, God, you cannot overtrain glutes. I've never seen a woman with too big a glutes. Like I love big butts, and I can't lie. I said that in the last podcast. And it's true. Like big butts are amazing. Like if you see like a chick and she's slim and she's got a booty on her, it's the hottest thing. It's like what we were talking about earlier with your Russian blonde weightlifter on your movie that you were watching. It's amazing to see, right? So I don't think you can train glutes enough. And a lot of the time, I don't think I've ever met a girl who, has started growing her butt and has said, actually, it's now got too big. So, I definitely wouldn't recommend sort of isolation work on your arms. You don't really need to be doing bicep curls and tricep extensions and that if you just want to stay small and lean, and it's really not necessary. I think if you just train hard with a good intensity, sort of more circuit style, making sure that you've got good load on a bar. I'm not talking about sort of 10 kilo squats here. I'm talking 40, 50 kilos if you're a 60 kilo female. That's a fairly decent weight. Yeah, they'd be my general recommendations rather than a split body part routine.
Sweet. Okay, nice. Right, last question. Do you ever use equipment like wraps, lifting shoes, straps, etc. with yourself or with clients? And what's applicable for people? And also, where would you get cool lifting shoes? A question by Martin Merkham.
Okay. Yes, I do use my lifting shoes. I bought mine in Vegas. I can't remember, it's a mall in Vegas because I wear a UK size 3.5 or a size 4, and I couldn't find weightlifting shoes to fit me. So when I found some in Vegas, and I've got fluoro Nike ones, and they were the only ones that fitted my feet. So whether they're the best ones or not, I don't know, and I don't care because they do the job. But I know I was speaking to a lot of coaches over here in Australia. A lot of them get their lifting shoes from China, especially for their girls, because that's where the sizes come from. Obviously, the Chinese girls are quite small, so they make them. In terms of what are the best weightlifting shoes, I couldn't tell you. It's not my specialty. I know Adidas are very popular over here, and so are Nike. I wouldn't know.
The Adidas shoes look awesome. I've got a
the
pair
Adidas
of.
Ones, don't they look cool?
I've got a pair of Do-Wins, and like you say, they do the job. But I saw Adidas. I can't remember what shoe type they are. But they do a red one, and they've just released it in yellow, and it's on my Amazon wish list. It looks sick.
Awesome. So yes, I do use those, and to be honest, I tend to only really use them when I'm going through a phase of pretty heavy squatting. Just on that note, remind me after we've answered this question. I definitely want to talk about fitness model training as well. We'll throw that one in at the end. But yeah, I also use lifting straps as well. So when I'm deadlifting, I definitely use straps. My favorite are my shake straps, or my shake, whatever they're called, straps. I'm not a fan of figure eights. They don't grip sort of my wrists enough. And again, I like the chic ones because I have skinny wrists, so I can make sure that they're nice and tight. And the best thing about them is that the tail on them is quite short, so I'm not forever wrapping. I don't use any knee wraps or anything like that. It's completely unnecessary for what I do. Um, I think that's pretty much it. I don't really use any other assistance equipment. I do use chalk, um, but that's pretty
Just
much
to
it.
think about assistance equipment, what
Yeah.
would be your rationale for using an assistance like wraps? Sort of where would you use it in the training program in your eyes?
Pretty much in competition phases, I suppose, and in absolutely, maximal effort lifts. I think you've got to be, first of all, you have to be extremely well trained to warrant using wraps. I don't, I know people do use it for occlusion training, um, but if we're talking about using wraps for maximal lifting, you got to be pretty well trained before you do that. I wouldn't recommend it to a member of the general public just to wrap up your knees because they're a little bit sore when you're squatting. Just sort out the underlying pain before you start,
I would say something that's
dabbling
very
in any of that.
common in women is poor grip and hand strength. So obviously
Yeah.
using wrist wraps would be, for me, counterproductive in terms of general weaknesses. But
Mhm.
would you agree that, let's say, a female is concentrating a lot on a deadlift, you're working up, their grip will not allow them, let's say, to get above 50, but we want to condition the hamstrings, the glutes, lower back a bit more. We do 2 top sets with straps and stick like 65 on the bar and kind of train through the, because what you're essentially then doing is using different muscles in that lift because you're overloading a different part of the body.
Sure. I definitely do all my warm up sets without my straps. My working sets I do with my straps because my grip is never going to be as strong as my glutes and my hamstrings. I'm never going to compete in a powerlifting competition, so the need for me to have an extremely strong grip is not necessary. However, I do train my grip. It's important to train flexion, extension, and radio and ulnar deviation, which is obviously flexion, extension, and radio and ulnar deviation. And also making sure that you can also use isometric grip strength. So for example, at the beginning or the end of your workout, or even on another day, just practicing having a heavy load in your hands. So for example, rack pulls. I practice rack pulls without straps. So I do train my grip. I just don't tend to do it on the day that I'm training my glutes and hamstrings.
Do you wear gloves to avoid calluses?
No way! I love my calluses. You
Just
can't see. Oh,
checking.
you can't see them. You can't see them on here now. But no, do you know what? Like, I can't even fathom the idea of wearing gloves in the gym. Like, I love the feeling. I think this goes to back to like the sick passion for training. Like, I love the feeling of like hands on a cold bar, almost when it almost cuts into your skin. Like, it feels so good. So no, I don't wear gloves in the gym. I have
Nice.
calluses. My hands on top look nice, and I wear rings and everything, but no, underneath they're pretty bad.
All right, let's wrap up. You have a last
I
section
do have
of
I do have a
ramblings.
last section. It's very important to know this. Going back to what you said before, right in the beginning, where you were talking about, that you want inspiration, and you open a magazine, and there's, your fitness model latest split. I get asked this a lot in interviews as well, where people say, "Oh, what's your training? What's your training style? And can you tell us what you do on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays?" Well, if I tell you, it's just all it is a complete snapshot of a complete year of training. So I think it's important for people to remember this, that when they're looking in a magazine and they see somebody's training split, all it is a tiny snapshot in a moment of time. So I'll take, for example, my training, and anybody who trains under me, they have, a year long cycle where they'll have, an intensification phase where they tend to be lifting a little bit heavier. And then they'll have sort of more of an accumulation or volume based phase. And so, really, depending on what cycle they're in, will depend on what exercises are in there, which depends on what rest periods are in there. So I can't really tell you, well, this one is, oh, this is I only train for fat loss, because I don't. There are times where I train for strength, there are times where I train for hypertrophy, and there are times where I train for fat loss. So I think we have to make sure that we're looking at, the whole amount, not just snapshots in time.
Nice. Right, let's wrap up. That is more than enough incredible content for both ladies and for men. Um, right, if people want to find you and they haven't listened to the previous podcast, where on earth do they find you? And did you tell me correctly that you'd written some kind of book?
I have. I've just released my second ebook, and this is a bodyweight training ebook. I actually wrote it when I was in Fiji, and when I didn't have a gym to train at, and the types of exercises that I was doing, I was like, you know what, I should kind of make an ebook out of this because these are pretty cool exercises. So there is an ebook I've just released, the bodyweight training ebook. There is about 35 exercises in there. You do not need any space or any equipment, and it also contains a 6-week periodized program, so that you can train with just body weight for 6 weeks. So that's available now on my website, which is www.athleticfox.com. You can come and find me on social media. I love to talk to people, so come find me on facebook.com/athleticfox or /Rachel Guy Fit Pro. I do not know my YouTube channel. You'll have to just
You
Google
said that
it.
last time. Find out.
I know.
Useless.
I know. Well, it's. I know. I'm sorry. I'm blonde. I'm useless. I know. And my Twitter account is Twitter @athleticfox.
Nice. Wow. Your book sounds really good. I think body weight training is an awesome topic because I don't think people appreciate how much you can get done without a gym.
Absolutely.
We don't need a gym.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I completely agree, and your body weight training is tough. I don't think we do enough of it. I thought I was pretty strong. Like, I can dumbbell press my 20-kilo dumbbells, and going then to do push-ups, and I'm like, man, I'm so weak. I can only do like 10 push-ups. It's pathetic.
Well, you better sort that out, Rachel. Anyway, I've just looked you up on
Sorry,
YouTube.
Betty.
If you put in Rachel Guy into YouTube, you will be the first hit. And the first video that comes up is why women should lift weights.
Yay! Awesome.
So you are there. So for people that want to know, it's Rachel Guy or the Athletic Fox on most platforms. Right. Well, thank you very much for being a guest, Rachel.
Thank you very much for having me, Benny.
It's been a pleasure. Just before you go, I will wrap up with my ramblings. If you enjoyed the show, please do me the huge honour of A, sharing it with friends and family. Like, we can only spread the message if people help. These things don't grow by themselves. It's through your kind recommendation. And also, if you haven't left a review on iTunes, please take 2 minutes, jump onto the show on iTunes, on your computer or your phone, and leave us a review. That's what helps us keep getting noticed within iTunes. It's been featured before. It's been featured in the top 10 ever since its inception. It only stays that way by keep getting reviewed. For people that are looking at seminar-based stuff, me and Phil Lerney will be in Australia. All the details are on Facebook. You can hit me up on Facebook. I will send you the link for both our Melbourne and our Sydney dates. We'll also be in Dubai on the 18th and the 19th of April. And that is all. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you everyone for listening. Tune in soon. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio. Well, I never. Another transatlantic show. There's a bit of a legend in the industry on the line. It is Martin Rooney. Hello.